Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spark Spotlight series. I'm so excited to introduce our third of this like test flight of this video podcast. Jenn Fields. I'm at im.trying JPEG on Lemastic. Jenn, I'm so excited to talk to you because as we were just like referencing a few minutes ago. There's like three people that we try to like support on Lemastic, three personas, I guess, and it's all wrapped in this idea of the creative, right? And so there's like creators, makers, and entrepreneurs. Grayson was like our creator, our writer, our person that's in his head, like trying to like work on like a piece of art. Polly was like our entrepreneur, like more traditional business minded person, and you to me represent this like maker mentality, like a person who just like can't help but like see things on the internet, like buttons and posters and all these things, and you just like want to like throw yourself into it and make something. So I'm pumped to talk to you today.
Yeah, I think you summed me up fairly well. I think I fall into that line of people who are like, I need to create things and make things, right? I'm very like I'm a person that like likes to check things off the to-do list. There's a bunch of lists in my head, right? So there's like the work list and these lists. And I feel much better when I'm like, I've done this. Here's this thing that I've made today, even if it's like a failure, even if it's not even what I tried to start off making. There's just something about seeing like a finished thing that you're like, I did it.
Yes.
I did it.
And to you, like, just to give more context to what you do, and like we can talk about your Etsy store and all that stuff, but I'm fine to delve into like whatever the fuck you want to talk about, but I think that's really relevant even to the stuff that you sell, right? It's like there's buttons and posters, and like when we talked, you were really into like enamel buttons, like, and the acrylic stuff, and or what was it?
It's resin.
Resin, resin stuff. Like, there's so much I feel that just flows. Like, you get ideas from other things, and you like put them out into the world. The other one that I remember from our first conversation was you saying that you would like dress up in crazy outfits and like go to McDonald's or something, and
I'm one of these people that like I kind of, especially during the pandemic, right? Like, I think that we live in this world where we're expected to make great art every day and put it out there and show the world like I do great things every day. Like a master jar, I do this finished, ready to sell product every single day, but that's not real, right? There are days that I wake up and I'm like, my hands don't want to work. I can't draw a circle. I can't draw anything, right? But for the type of person I am that feels like they constantly have to achieve this level of creation, I realized early on that maybe it's just I can't draw today, but I can draw on my face, and I can turn that need to create into a different medium. I do these really weird cosplays where I'm like, what's lying around my floor? Butterfly stickers. Let's turn my face into a sky and, put butterflies all over my face, to the point where, friends of mine are like, I thought that was a filter. I didn't realize that was makeup. And my husband's constantly like, I feel like I'm gonna go in the house and there's just gold flake everywhere. Like, just a trail of butterfly stickers and gold flake, and he never knows what he's gonna expect to find. I do these weird cosplays of just like, I'm going to become, No Face from Spirited Away. Nobody asked for it, and I'm gonna just do it because this is what I feel like I can achieve today.
Wow.
And then other times it's like, I'm gonna make a Japanese cheesecake. I don't even like to bake, but let's try it. Because what's the worst that's gonna happen? I've wasted a block of cheesecake, or cream cheese, but it's fine.
Jenn, you are like everything. There's so much in there that I want to talk about, but I want to do good by our listeners. I want to prevent my ADHD scatterbrain from getting in the way of this interview. So let's take me back. You mentioned this idea of like always feeling like a need to create stuff, and like learning early on that like if it wasn't through like painting or drawing, it could be through makeup or like clothes, baking, all these things, like just you feel a need to make something every day, and like you realize the medium isn't that important to you. So walk me through like when in life you learned this. Talk to me about like, tell me about your childhood, Jenn.
Well, I'm an only child, so I think very early on, I kind of had to come up with this whole mentality of like, kind of need to entertain yourself. I've always been really independent, so I've always had this like, not really a need to wait for somebody else to give me the go ahead or the green light or even the companionship to do something. I've always just kind of been like, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. And I'm first generation. My mom is from Thailand. So I think that like, you end up in your own little bubble of like, identity is kind of a weird thing. I was one of like 7 Jennifers growing up, but I didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes, right? So I didn't really feel like I related because I grew up in California and everyone just seemed much different than I did. My mom was definitely not like the other moms in school. So I think you start to either go against that kind of individualism, or you have to find ways to just make it work for yourself. And I've always been an experimenter. Like middle school, I think I started dyeing my hair pink in 6th grade. And there's probably been like 5 years when I didn't have fun colored hair. And then the rest of my entire life has been, let's dye it. I remember like when I was a waitress at Olive Garden, they told me the only hair dye I could use was something you could buy at Walmart. So like the colors were very much like you could only be in this little shell. So I did things like patches of blonde, just really weird things with the colors that I could do until I was able to be an adult with blue hair all the time.
You are like the queen of creative constraint, like finding and like finding the constraint and then like breaking through the mold. This is fascinating to me. Sorry, not to interrupt you.
High school, I mean, it's probably not too surprising, but I was into theater. I was drama club president.
Wow, so super into theater.
Yeah, like real into it. Like
that's
I was
awesome.
Actually talking to my husband last night. We were talking about high school, and I was like, yeah, I feel like some of the things that I did in high school just like weren't real. Like I didn't go to a lot of classes and just hung out in the auditorium. And that's not an experience a lot of people get to have, right? Like teachers would be like, you don't need to come to this class today. It's going to be really boring for you. Don't you have like theater stuff? Yeah. And then I would just go read plays and work on stuff that we were doing. But I followed a weird path when it came to education. In high school, I took all the AP classes. I was really setting myself up to go to college. But I didn't really know what that was about. Being that I'm an only child, my dad was military, so he was gone a lot. My mom also didn't know anything about school. I mean, she watched Saved by the Bell, so that's what she thought school was like for me. So I was easily to convince her that like classes were canceled in high school because she'd see it on TV and she'd be like, okay, what do you want for lunch? So there was never like anyone being like, you should, go to this college and do this career path. Instead, I just didn't, but I took all the classes, I did all of the things, and after graduation I just worked and I did restaurants for like 15 years. So somewhere along you start to kind of get like, I was really creative, obviously in high school, but then I worked. And that kind of starts to take some of like the time to really experiment or do any kind of fun things away. I quickly became like restaurant manager, general manager. So into that, I really just started pouring myself into work. Somewhere around 2015, I decided this isn't for me anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a GM. I have no hobbies, no friends. My whole life is this restaurant. And it was like probably my most non-creative time. I had to dress a certain way because I was in like a fine dining general manager. I had to really present myself a certain way. There wasn't a lot of creative outlet for me at that time. It was like 80 hours in a restaurant, worried about inventory and staff. So yeah, around like April 2015, I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. I had planned to take like 3 months off to kind of figure out what
was going to be next.
Out there. You know what I mean? Like my husband was cool with it. I was just going to like, I don't even know, figure out who I was again, because I felt like I had lost a good portion of my life and who I was and the things that I like to do. I I didn't actually end up taking any time off. I gave my restaurant like a 2-month notice, which is absurd. Just in case anyone is like trying to quit their job, don't give anyone 2 months of a notice, okay? Because by the time you say I'm quitting, you're counting down. No matter how great of a person you are, like it becomes so hard.
You checked out. But, you've checked out.
Yeah, you've checked out. And you're like, why did I do this for 2 months? But I quickly got another job, who was where I'm at now, for a completely different avenue, which was software.
Yeah.
With no experience. I knew how to run restaurants. I did not know how to turn the computer on. You know what I mean? This is very much who I was. But I had all this free time. Like when I started there, it was like, what? Weekends off? Nights off? There's no late night, having to cover shifts or anything.
Yeah.
So it was like a really good period of kind of reconnecting with myself. And I strangely got into Kpop in 2015. So it was like this big change in me with this all free time. I fell into the world of Tumblr hard.
You tumbled into Tumblr.
Yeah, I tumbled into Tumblr. It was like Tumblr and YouTube, and it was like all these exciting things happening on the internet, right? And I was like, I want to be a part of that. Let's do it. So I'm like listening to K-pop, and this weird joining that kind of like fandom where it was definitely like a younger group, but still having some of the same kind of things that I was going through, right? Like a loss of identity, a loss of a dream. Like, who am I? So even though I was a little bit older than the average listener, I was still struggling trying to figure all these things out myself. Yeah. So it was like a really good connection to start down. And it just kind of, I guess, reignited the fact that I could do anything, right? So somehow from K-pop, I ended up just being like, you know what? You can do art. You can get an iPad. You can draw things out. You can start trying to do these like kind of creative endeavors. I started a like blog with 2 of my friends called K-Chat, where we would review things like songs that came out, Korean beauty products, and make these really terrible videos, kind of drinking limeritas and just discussing like what we thought about a song or what have you. And they were just these fun outlets, right? So like, not that anybody was really asking my opinion on any group's comeback, but I was still sharing it. So it was like these things of being like, you can do so much. And it was from there that I started making art. And
wait. So you like didn't do any of this stuff in high school? Like,
I might have taken like 1 art class in 6th grade. But everything else, because
incredible.
I was in the theater, timeline, like that's what I did, is I just did theater. So like I didn't take any painting classes, any drawing classes, nothing.
Were you like doodling in class?
No,
like...
I wasn't even like a big doodler.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
So literally for like 25 years, like nothing really, like occasional.
And then
like,
you got
doodle.
a goddamn iPad, like Steve Jobs is rocking around in his grave. He's like so fucking happy right now. He's like, somebody.
It's basically like K-pop and an iPad, and I was like, oh, okay, let's get it. Yeah, so those I would say like those are the parents of my whole art life, was K-pop and an iPad.
So talk to me more like, maybe you don't see it this way, but like, why did it have to be K-pop? Like, what was it about that community or the music or like the culture around it, whatever, that made you feel more like you could express yourself?
So I think it's I think I have to start with saying like I've always been really like hand in hand with music. I've always loved everything. I've always been that girl that's like thinks that driving to, Charlotte overnight to see a band is like normal. You know what I mean? Like going to work and living your life. Like I would do really crazy things. I think for me, I had like a rule that was like 4 hours is like an okay amount to drive somewhere in one day and come back after a show. So I like was really into pop punk and punk rock, and like, there's that channel of like music connects me to everything. I have so many feelings, and so many other people express it better in a song than I do. So I don't think it's like too far out there that like K-pop opened up something inside me. I got into K-pop that, like I said, they expressed so many different things that I was also going through, that's I think where my connection started. It was just like, man, you're right. Like, who am I? Trying to figure stuff out. And everyone that I've encountered in that whole spectrum of fandom has just been super positive to me. Like, even to this day, I have random friends I've never met face to face that we send each other like care packages all through the pandemic. Just like randomly, like, here's a pep talk that you didn't know you needed, and I'm going to send it to you. You know, I think that there's a commonality between people who find themselves kind of drifting through different friend groups through life. I haven't ever had that core of like, I've been friends with the same people since I was 12. That's just not a reality to me. So I think that there's always been a common thread between the people I've met through K-pop and myself, that they're this group of lonely people who are just looking to be a part of something, and they all just kind of fit at the right time. There are giant K-pop conventions that happen on both coasts, and I remember having this conversation with this girl who I've never met in line for one of them, and she talked about how depressed she was and how like suicidal she had been for so long, but this K-pop group that sings in a different language, like really made her feel like she wasn't alone and really pulled her out of that.
Wow.
And I think that's when it first hit me, and this is in like 2016, about that commonality of just like, it's not so much the music, it's not so much the looks, but there's that need to feel like you belong somewhere, that you're a part of something, that there are people who like get you out there.
Yes.
And I think that's where my connection came into. For me, it's in this group BTS, which is like one of the biggest K-pop groups out there. But the things that they would sing about are things that like I felt, that like we're like, man, there's somebody who, even if they're across the world, feels exactly the same way I do. You feel just a little bit less alone and a little bit more empowered to go and continue being you. Yeah. So I think that's like the most important thing, where when I talk about like my connection to K-pop, people assume it's in, very cute young men and young women and the dancing and the singing. But there's this part that's like, it's a little bit deeper, because it's all about connection, which is very similar to what you tried to do at Lumastic.
I'm like getting chills here, Jenn. Like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Okay. My God, I'm like, where the fuck am I? Like, what's going on with this interview? Like, my God. Like,
so, and I think that experience, you'll find that if you talk to anyone over 25 who is still into K-pop, they're going to have something very similar to say about it. And it might not be with like the same group that I have that connection with, but you'll see those commonalities throughout. And I think that's the part that gets missed a lot, because people see it and they're like, oh, Jenn's obsessed with like very feminine boys. And they're like, I wish it was just, you know what I mean?
I wish it was that simple.
But it's a little bit more than that.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, I'm like stirring and processing, but this is so incredible. So, I don't know, where do you want to go now? I'm like, there's so much to tease out, even in like the fact that you didn't even fucking draw until like 5 years ago, like, is insane. So like
how did that really start? Like, what?
Walk me through then the building of skill, because Jenn, you're phenomenal. Like,
thank you.
Like, so like walk me through the building of that skill, and like, like, did you feel like it was like easy to come at that aspect of it for you, because you were just like making stuff for the community you were a part of, or like, and like walk me through like how that community fed into your creativity, because obviously like that's super interesting to me. Like, how did you find like a support system in that way, that you could like continue to grow your skill set? Just like talk to me about that stuff.
So I think that my experience with art is a lot different than other people's, because a lot of times, artists make art for a really long time and then have this like challenge of figuring out like, can I do this full time? Can I make money doing this? Yeah. Where my experience was really different, where I think that, I started drawing with my friends, my little group called K-Chat. We all bought iPads. I think that should also be known, right? So we had like this supportive drawing group where we would sit at boba shops and or coffee shops and draw for like 6 hours on a Sunday. Just random
Wait,
things. And
hang on,
cheer
hang
each other
on. Let me delve into that for 5 seconds. Like, so there's three of you?
Yeah, there was three of us.
Okay, and you all just like decided that you wanted to get into drawing? And like why? And like why did K-pop lead so well into drawing?
Yeah.
Like talk to me about that.
So I think that it just like I think that my struggles with identity and trying to find myself was also common for them too, right? So we started that blog, and then you just start being like, what are things that I liked to do as a kid? And some of them were like, I really like to paint. And we were like, let's have a paint night. You know what I mean? And then it turned into like, oh, this is a really great, like, I had so much time now. I was like, this is like a very nice, like relaxing kind of way to spend time. So you start drawing fan art, right? Because you feel
it's
so
the thing that's inspired. Yeah, it's inspiring to you. And so it's like, boom.
We started drawing fan art. And then we really liked it, and we're sharing it, online. And then I can't remember which one it was, but there was a like a Korean festival. So there's two that happened to me very early on. There was one local called Kpop, and then one in North Carolina, which is a bigger festival called Korea Fest. Both of these things come into play kind of around the same time because me and one of the other girls randomly applied. We were just like, let's apply to be a vendor. You know what I mean? We were like, let's just try it out. We'll split a table and we'll just see what it is. I think Kpop was the first one, which was like a lot smaller, probably like maybe 100 people. So we split this table. It was very low risk because it was like, I remember it being like $15 or something. So we split this table. We did a little bit of a cosplay dress up. Because
as one does when you go to a festival, right?
If you're at you're at a convention, whether K-pop or comic convention, like we just wanted to meet people, right? So we had really low expectations. We don't have our name out in the community. No one really knows who we are, but we just wanted to have fun, right? So if people wanted to buy our art, cool. If not, we'll at least chat people up and experience this new thing together.
Yeah.
So so the first convention went really well. We obviously got in. We had a great time. We met all these people. We were very much just like, hey, come talk to us. Be our friend. So I think that put us kind of at a different light than some of the other vendors.
Yeah, you were there to build community, and they were there to sell their stuff.
Yeah, we were like, we don't know how this is going to go. We drew some stuff. We ordered some prints off Vistaprint, and we were like, wow, let's go. And then we got into Korea Fest. So yeah, it definitely was Kpop, then Korea Fest. And we go, and I remember checking into this, and it was like a huge gymnasium. Like we went from 100 to something that was like 5,000 people were going to be
wow.
at. There were actual like K-pop groups there.
Oh my gosh.
There was maybe like 10 vendors, and we were just like, how did this happen? And leading up to it, they interviewed us on Instagram Live. It was just this like crazy thing because they're asking us questions like, what are your best sellers? And for me, everything is like an original, especially with my resin. So it was like, this, you know what I mean? Like we hadn't got there. I didn't have an Etsy. I didn't have a website. I barely had an Instagram. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we applied and like chatted ourselves up, and partially for our own confidence, and the others to like build the confidence in us. And it was insane. Like the event itself was just crazy. We thought it would be sort of like Kpop. We'd had like this fun time. We were excited that there was like Korean food, and we were like, oh, it's gonna be so great. We didn't have time to eat anything. We were not prepared for this. It was nonstop of like people buying stuff. People were taking pictures with us, which is like this whole other weird level, right? And then there was people who had met us at Kpop who were there now and like showing us our art in their classrooms. And it was like definitely a very surreal moment for me to be like, holy moly, I'm making like a difference in somebody else's life.
Yeah.
This is very new. This is really insane. People are like into what we're doing. They're into my drawing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was crazy.
An overwhelm of validation. It was like
yeah, right? Because like most people, it's a long time to kind of feel anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You make art for so long, especially in your, it's in your four walls. And we had, instead of spending the time just in our four walls, to just just started running wild all over the place.
Yeah.
So Korea Fest was huge. It was a major boost of confidence to really continue on and to just keep going. And I realized that like I loved working conventions. I just like talking to people and meeting people. Surprise, surprise. And, like, and for me, it's kind of always been like that first, talking to anybody who's like, I really like this that you do. Like, it's still to this day, I'm like overwhelmed by it. Like, I can hear my husband and myself try to say like, you're doing a great job, but it like pales in comparison to hearing like one person compliment one thing. Even if they don't buy it, I'm like, I don't even care. Like, if you came over and you told me that you love this and you have no money, I'm also notorious to just giving stuff away, which is also why, the business side is a little bit different for me, because I just get so excited, or just take everything.
Wow, Jen. So, okay, this is incredible, Jen. I hope like, you were all nervous. You were like, I mean, like, Polly's story, freaking amazing, whatever. But you gotta own this is amazing. You should feel no insecurity. Like, you have to.
Thank you.
Yes, this I hope is not your last podcast interview. Like, because
this is so fun.
Okay, so we're what then at like 2017, whatever?
I believe like 2016. Yeah, probably 2016, 2017.
This is 2016, 2017. So then when do you decide, like,
when does im.trying go online?
Yeah. When do you go online? When do you decide like this is a thing that I want to continue to do in my free time and like try to turn this into kind of like a side income business, or like just talk to me about that part.
So after like the success of Korea Fest, I was like, oh man, I want to do more conventions. Like, I just want to do more events. This is so fun, right? I don't even care the size. Like, I'm just going to go. And at the same time, like, I think that it's like Kpop was like not as big as it is now, obviously. Mm-hmm. A lot of times.
Because it's exploded. It
definitely exploded. But it was like, this is like right on the cusp. You know what I mean? Like, it's right before BTS really like takes over the world and all these groups start really becoming
before they're on the Today Show and like all these things. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I know that I can't just do Korean festivals and K-pop festivals because there's like so few of them. So I was like, I'm just gonna apply for like Comic-Cons and anime conventions, and I'm just gonna see what happens. And I can also start exploring different things, because I don't just like K-pop, like I do watch anime.
Yeah.
And when I go to those conventions, it starts with the whole, I like certain animes, I can't find merch on it or fan art on it, I guess I'm just going to start drawing it. You know what I mean? And I apply for all these like pop-up markets in the area, and it's such a different experience because, conventions are one thing. It's kind of like in high school, like I would definitely say that like, like my subculture is where I'm at, right? So it's like the theater kids, the alt kids. We're all different, but we all know that we're like under the same umbrella, right? Because if someone just looked at us, they'd all assume we're into the same thing. So that's kind of how I was like, I'm sure that not everyone at a comic convention is going to be into K-pop, but I know that there's going to be some people there.
Some people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I just go and I start doing these, and obviously I cosplay there because why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you?
And it becomes the same sort of thing, right? So it becomes just like it was at the Korean Fest. I'm real chatty. People love that. So I'm making all of these friends and these different people who then start buying my art, and it becomes this really, really fun thing to do. So like 2018, 2019, I have like a bunch of them lined up. Like it starts small, like one or two, and then I get into almost all of the local ones.
Wow.
It's just crazy and fun. So I would say like every couple of months I would be at a comic convention.
I didn't realize
really
that
cool.
there were that many comic conventions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's
there's
awesome.
There's 4 that are just in the Hampton Roads area, and then you have some that go into Richmond, some into Fredericksburg. So that's kind of like my travel area, where I was going.
Tie in again to the where would I go, like my driving distance for a band, right? This is like like
and that my driving distance and like by 2016 definitely expands to New York City. handfuls of trips where I go to New York in a day and come back. It's insane. Okay, most people are like, there's a running joke in my office that was like, Jenn goes to New York the same way people go to Norfolk. Like, it's just like I have places I like to eat and stop on the drive, and I go every time. So yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. But yeah,
Wow.
And then I also just start doing like pop-up markets locally. And these are the ones where it's a little bit different because I go
It's like
into
in a
these
high
events.
school gym or like.
Okay, yeah, I've done a fair share of the high school gym ones. So it's like me, and I'm like, my booth is very bright. It's very pink. There's just a lot happening. There's a lot to look at. It's a lot of glitter. And
It's
I'm
very
next
you.
to,
It's very
yeah,
you, Jenn.
and then I'm next to Pampered Chef. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very, and every time I have like one friend that I always like confide in. At the start of every event, I go, I don't know how this is gonna go, because I know that like, I know that I'm like very nichey and like, I very much stick out like a sore thumb. Like I'm not selling candles. The normal consumer doesn't know they're looking for anything that I sell. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you go to these fairs and it's usually like there's going to be some people selling jewelry and candles and plants. Or plants are very huge right now. And then I'm there and I'm like, here's a coaster set I made with glitter, and whatever else, you know, that I've started doing. But yeah, so that's kind of how I expanded. Was just I just started doing markets. I got into applied at everything. I figured, let's just see what happens, right? We'll just go and we'll make the best of it. Worst case is we learned a really great way to set up our booth. So we're better prepared for next time. Or you know, find a new friend from going to some of these. So yeah, that was kind of like it, you know, into 2019, I was just like, I'm in all sorts of different markets. I'm in, you know, GalaxyCon in Richmond. I'm in the Sweetheart Festival at Princess Anne High School.
Wait, Jenn, walk me through though, like, where do you think I from like where I see it in my background, all that stuff, and I'll just like speak for myself. I won't try to speak generally for like creators and artists out there, but I do feel like a lot of us have a fear of output, right? Like something that you alluded to earlier was this idea of like, I can't draw right now. And like Grayson talked about that in our interview, like this idea of the muse, right? Like feeling like it's not coming out right now, but his goal every day is to just like have a time to be ready, right? To put in the practice and all that stuff. But I feel like that's very hard for like us to do. Like, and to just say like, I'm going to make something, put myself out there, all that stuff, because we like wrap our, like you've been saying, like the art and all this stuff was like your way of like capturing identity. Like that's truly what it is. We like start to feel like if our output is rejected or is bad, then we are bad, right? Because this is me. And like, so but the thing I am fascinated and envious and all that stuff of is like, you don't seem to, you have like this amazing defense mechanism against that. And so like, talk me through where you feel that comes from, or whether I'm just like, I don't see the internals, I can't see behind the curtain, right? Like, just talk to me about that.
I would probably say you don't see behind the curtain.
Okay.
But I don't know. So I think that it's weird because I definitely have those moments of struggle where I feel rejected and I feel like, is this going anywhere? Am I just wasting a bunch of time?
Yeah.
But it's that struggle between like being a creative person because you have something inside of you that needs to come out, and then this side of you that's like, oh, but it's also kind of like a business now, right? Like I have a store and I have like people who buy things from me and who want to buy things from me, and it's really weird because I think I never want to be that person who just makes things because they know they can sell it. So like, you know, sometimes my husband will be like, oh, you would make so much money if you just made X. You know, and he has this idea, and I get it. Like I think he's right, but I have this sense where I'm like, but I only want to make things that I want to make. Because there's a selfish reason of, like you said, like that's a part of me. Like I look at that, I see that, and when someone appreciates it, it resonates in a different light than something that I don't care about that someone just bought. You know, it's like for me, like I I think I would feel less successful if I did that. Like
Yeah.
I'd rather sell one thing every 3 months than
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a bunch of things that I have no heart inside of.
Yeah.
Um,
So how do you
but I
fight
think
against that feeling? Like how do you fight against the like the rejections and the like this thing is me and it didn't sell, or like all these things? Like is it just
so.
cuz you like the work so much, or how do you do that?
I mean, I definitely fall into the questioning of myself when that rejection happens. Like most recently, last winter, I applied to be part of a market, and the rejection that came wasn't necessary. Was the way that it was said was you don't fit in here,
Ooh.
and it hit really hard. You know what I mean? Because there are other people who make similar objects using some of the same mediums as me, but their connection is maybe to a different music genre. So it definitely
Mm.
left me with a sense of like, I don't fit in because I'm more glittery and I'm into K-pop, where people who are making ICP stuff
Mm.
do fit into your markets. It felt very much like that kind of rejection, right?
Yeah.
Um, which isn't a feeling that I'm not used to.
Right.
Um, as I said, like being someone who hasn't had like that friend group that's been there for 100 years, for forever, you have to learn to kind of like be okay with being alone.
Mm.
And that goes along with my art, right? You have to
Mhm.
be okay with being the only person who likes what you're doing. If you're still finding joy in it, then you can't put all of your personal I guess pride or success in your mind, whether or not someone buys it or they let you into their market or they compliment you or you have
Yeah.
tens of thousands of followers, because then you're just never going to succeed. If that's what you're going for, that dream is so much different than like I'm making these things because there's something inside of me that I need to get out and I like doing it, and
Mhm.
it's cool if three people are into it too.
Yeah.
For me, that's like so much more successful. But no one's dictating what I need to make. It is on your own schedule, and you're finding different ways to connect through that versus cool. I'm making money drawing X, and I hate it, and I hate
Yeah.
everything about it. I don't want to
Yeah.
do it. You know, I
Yeah.
think for me too, because I'm also a salaried employee during the week, I have to choose my time wisely to make it so that I'm also happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and
like
if you
nine,
if you just had to like crank out a bunch of like the same goddamn thing, whatever, like it,
you would be like, this is another job that I don't want. Like I never
yeah,
wanted to sign up for. So I think that that's where I come in a little bit differently,
this is no longer an
Um,
outlet. Like this is the, um, it's not for the thing to come out of me. It's more for people outside to get a part of me. You know?
yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I want to talk to you then about like there is this social cultural concept that we're moving to. So like right, the whole Lumastic thing is because we're moving to this like future economy where like human people with their own like creative skills and outlets and all these stuff, like that is going to be the fucking future.
Right.
Like this whole idea of we work independently together is like the thing we're trying to support at Lumastic, because like we're not exactly good alone, right? Like the even I'd say like the reason we do make art and put it out there is so we can find people who believe what we believe, who love what we love, like all these things, right? That's the need to get something out. So like in that vein, I think a lot about like this concept of when it becomes no longer like the feeling of creating art, and it's more like this feeling of like everyone has a business, right? Like where we're constantly trying to like monetize our own creative output. And I like that. I like that in one aspect, because it's like people like you get to be paid for the value you make in the world, right? Like my sister working on her album, like doesn't have to like go fucking like sign with a label and like do all this stuff and like could be other things. She can like produce stuff in her bedroom and like people can pay her for it, right? Like that's good. But it comes with like the edge sword of like with creative output like comes this idea of, and like monetization of that output comes this fear of it no longer becoming for you, it becomes for other people. And so how do you think about that and like square that circle? And like do you think about that and like the way I'm thinking about it, and like just talk to me.
Yeah, I think that's like one of my biggest challenges all the time, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying is like this thing now, right? Like sometimes I'm like, oh, is it, people expect X type of art or X types of things sell, but I
Yeah.
don't want to constantly just be in this box if that's the only thing that I do.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm always like, well, I want to try something else. And I've been really, really fortunate because I have a group of friends that literally like back me creatively and like, like I picked up I picked up painting really hard lately. Where I just was like obsessed with like creating these textures. And I made like
Mm.
a really small painting. I took this baby canvas and I was just like playing around with it and I showed it to someone and they immediately were like, I want an X size thing. I want you to paint it. And I just, what? Like, I,
You're like being
I've never,
commissioned. You're
yeah,
being
yeah. So
commissioned. Yeah.
I get commissioned from my friends who are, it's like now there's like a financial backing, right? Like
Yeah.
to do this thing. Um, but like even aside from the fact that they commissioned me, it's definitely propelled you to be like, yeah, you should try it because someone does like it. It's just
Right.
I'm very lucky that I get like almost instant gratification. I've been fortunate to have just that someone's like, yeah, do this. I want it.
Yeah.
Um, but it is hard
And that
because
it aligns kind of too with the stuff that you want to make versus like being like, hey, Jen, you'd make a ton of money if you did paintings of like really abstract
no,
paintings of the
yeah,
Hampton Roads skyline or Norfolk, whatever, Virginia Beach skyline. Yeah.
you know, it's and it, like I think that especially from you, I've learned a few things because I used to kind of be like, you don't want to share anything that's like a work in progress. You want to share like masterpieces and things that you're proud of that are sellable, but like you can't always get there in a time frame that like the way that social media makes you feel like you have to achieve because
Yeah.
it's just not real. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, but you have like such a great approach with like competition that like I constantly try to curb any of these notions where like, if it's been 5 days and I haven't actually finished anything, of course I can start to feel down, right? And then
Hmm.
you're on social media and you're like, oh, this person's like doing these amazing things and all I can do is be on TikTok, like watching other people's videos because I can't get it out right now.
Yeah.
And there is a very easy way, a slippery slope of like starting to doubt yourself, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I haven't posted anything in a week. Like, I cannot. Nothing feels worthy.
Right.
Um, and then you start to be like, should I even be doing this? There's all these more successful people, that are doing similar things, and they're already so great, or they're doing it better than me.
Yep.
And you can easily fall into like I'm just going to give up, right? But then you have to ask yourself like what does giving up look like? What does that really mean? Is that something that you want to do? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to constantly make stuff that people want to buy. Like sometimes you just have to make things for yourself. So I constantly have to remind myself that this isn't just for other people, but it's for me.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
and then that puts me back into like, okay, you can do this, You're
Yes.
not I think so much often we expect to like try something new and be the master at it, like be
Hmm.
perfect that first time, everything's amazing, chef's kiss. But
Yep.
the reality is like to make the perfect pie, you probably bake a bunch of shitty ones.
Yeah.
And as long as you think that through and and that's the way I try to look at it, that like, okay, this one's a stepping stone and next week we'll do better.
Yes.
and just
Exactly.
keep
This.
and just keep going. I think that's where like, the whole I'm trying really comes into play. Like I didn't want there to be an expectation that everything I do is perfect the first go around.
Yes.
Like I'm in a learning phase. Everything I do is in a learning phase.
Hmm.
Especially not having a strong art background, you see a different medium and you're like, that looks cool.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna
Yes.
try it.
Yes.
Like I think so many people get afraid of that failure. That like they're okay at a bunch of things, but they haven't found that thing that's like I'm great with it. I connect with it. It's everything I wanted because we're like, well, what if I fail at it? What if I spend a
Right.
bunch of money trying it and I'm like, this isn't it.
Yes. And Jen, there's so much in here. So like this is the whole thing we're trying to do is make this culture shift, right, to like progress, not perfection, right? Like
Yeah.
creative people need outlets where they can share the struggle, right? And not just like be constantly competing about like what the output is compared to everyone else, right?
Exactly.
Like that this is really truly about us learning, developing our own like personal skills and all that stuff, and seeing our own journey versus like just like trying to be better than each other, right? Because
Exactly.
this is art, this is self-expression, right? And so and it ties in, I think, really well to this discussion, right, about when this monetization engine that's coming, right, like like has been coming and all that stuff. You mentioned this idea of like being commissioned, right? Like that's how like fucking Da Vinci like became who he is to us now, is because people just said like, hey, I believe in you, right? Like I believe in your ability to learn and grow and all this stuff, and I want to help you be a part of that, right? Like, so here's some money. I want you to like freaking like, I'm completely blanking on anything Da Vinci did, but like right, paint the Mona Lisa, right? Like I want you to paint the Mona Lisa or whatever it is. And it was an opportunity of like not focusing so much on the output, but on the person, right, who's doing the creating. And I think that's incredible. And like you see that with like sites like Patreon, right? Like this patronage model is like coming back into the fold, where it's like I'm not so much investing in like, I'm not paying for the video, I'm not paying for like the next piece of art or the next installment in this blog or whatever. Like I'm not exactly paying for that. I'm paying for you to be able to make something, right? Because I believe in you more than I like care about like I care about the work being good, but I care about supporting your ability to learn and make the work good. I don't know. I'm like having this brain blast of this concept because of your story and what you've been saying.
It is really like, and I actually, it's like my friend who did commission me for that painting, like I've been calling her my patron.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like there's this, because that's exactly what she did. I mean, there was no direction. It wasn't like she called me and said, I want you to paint a cat on a couch. She said, I want you to do that thing on a canvas X big. Mm-hmm. And then it was also like, I don't know what X big really is, so just whatever you want. And, you know, and it was cool. It was cool, like just attacking something that I was intimidated by.
Yeah.
But I had that person, like I knew, silently cheering me on, even though she wasn't there.
Right,
I knew that she was back there like, you can do it. Just put some paint on the canvas. Just start.
Yes.
And you know, there's a lot of times we talk about on Lumastic too about like trusting the process, and like you might not know what it is right this second, but you're gonna come back to it later and you're gonna like really do it. But you have to start. You can't just think about it
excavate. You have to like start just macking things away. Yeah, you have to paint around.
Go for it.
Yes.
So I am really fortunate on that aspect, and that's probably why, you know, sometimes the idea of failure or whatever is probably more plagued in my own mind than anything else. But I have these people in my corner who are like, you're doing great. What do you mean that's a failure? You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of what you need, is like, you can see all the flaws within yourself.
Yes.
But, you know, that idea of there's a different you in everybody's head that you meet. It's like the same thing with your art. You know what I mean? You can look at it and be like, this is trash. I hate it. I hate it more than anything. And then someone comes around, they're like, I love it. Yes. I love everything about it. And I think that, like, you know, I love the idea of Patreon and things like that. I think they're so cool. I think they really bring us back to like you said, funding the person, the idea, the magic behind it, and not necessarily where it ends up.
Yes.
You see that with people who are doing like printed zines and stuff like that now.
Yeah.
Who have Patreons, and it's like, you know, for a long time people were like, printed word is so dead, but like it's really not. Like, you know what I mean? It's cool seeing these kinds of things come back into kind of mainstream.
Yes, and because like it might have been dead when it was about the output, right? Yeah. Like when freaking Time magazine or whatever like was like, okay, print is dead, no, like whatever. It's because everybody was competing about like the magazine, right? But this is more like, I'm giving money to Time, right? Like I'm giving money to Jenn, whatever, and Jenn wants to make me a fucking magazine that I can hold in my hands, whatever. Cool, right? Like it's again this like going back to the the support of the creator and like this small like scale sort of like even what you said, the idea like you're very niche, right? Like it's because like you find the thing that's inspiring to you and like you like to make and all that stuff, right? This is it ties back to this concept I talked about in Polly's interview of like everybody's like we're trying to convince everyone they need to be huge, right? Like
Yeah.
even how it is on like what you said about feeling like, oh, I don't have as many followers or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. Like it literally doesn't matter. That is such like a financialization of creativity, and like this is different. This is like the engine to make creative people like just able to fund the thing they want to make, right? And to build connections between people around art. Like that's what I find so fascinating about this is we are really as like a culture in many different aspects of our lives, we are moving back to this like need for connection and community and like to feel like we're a part of something bigger and like have intimate relationships and feel like a sense of togetherness. Like, and I think that that's what's happening even with this idea of, oh, Jenn's a really fucking cool artist and I want to commission her to like Jenn, I'm spinning in my head like if I owned this townhouse that I'm in, I'd want you to like put a fucking mural on my like wall, right? Because like that's the type of stuff that I think would be very inspiring to me and all that stuff. Just like I like the work you do, and there is a print on my wall, but like it's different if it's like something big. I don't know. I'm just like stirring in my head. I think that your story is just so fascinating and awesome, and like is truly like this vignette into the way that the world is moving, and it gets me excited and jazzed. And I hope you feel that way too.
I do. I always love talking with you. I feel like I was joking about it that I always feel like more confident in the way that the work that I'm doing too. Like there, like I said, like there's this the voices in your head, but when you talk to someone else or hear it from someone else, you're like, oh, I am doing okay, right? Like you're making magic happen, even if sometimes you're like, I think I got that wrong.
Right. Because it's like it's about growth, it's about learning, it's about like who we are as human people, it's about self-understanding. Like Alvaro, another one of our members, just like put out a thing in his newsletter all about that, like about how education and learning should be about understanding ourselves so that we can be better in the world. And I think that that's such a great tie-in with like showing people their worth through like creating stuff, finding a medium that you like and like working through it and all that stuff. Like we need as humans to create stuff. It's like the only thing like we're really that good at, like is imagining stuff in our minds and making them real, right? And so yeah, like I find this fascinating, Jenn. So cool. I don't know if you know this, but we've literally talked for 54 minutes.
I just like knew. I was like, someone was like, how long is your meeting with Drew? And I was like, anywhere from like an hour to 7. I don't know what it's actually going to be.
Oh, so awesome. Okay. I am going to wrap there, Jenn. Like, thank you for being here. Thank you for being such an early supporter of me and Keith and Lumastic and this community and all that stuff. Like, yeah, I hope you know just like how much I appreciate and if I can be so forward, love you as another human. Like you're awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your story with me and the rest of the community.
Yeah, anytime. I love you guys. I think everything that's happening at Lumastic is so fun. And I hope that other people who, are lurking on Lumastic and are afraid to share anything, feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about failing at different mediums or stuff you want to try. I'm the queen of seeing a TikTok and being like, I can do that. Even with no background in it at all. So, it's no judgment here at Lumastic. I hope that you find your voice to just start posting stuff and stop being a lurker. Lumastic's fun.
You rock, Jenn. Thank you for that plug. Your check is in the mail. Awesome. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll talk to you in a little bit, and thank you everyone for listening to Jenn's story. Oh, also the plugs, the asks, right? Go fucking buy something from Jenn's Etsy store. It'll be in the link below. Follow her on Lumastic on Instagram. Where else are you? What else do you want to tell people to do?
Just you can. I'm most active on Instagram, so come hang out, come chat with me. Find me on Lumastic. Find me on TikTok. I'm trying to figure that out, I think, with the rest of the world and stop being a lurker there. But yeah, let's make some art.
Let's make some fucking art. All right, Jenn. Thanks for being here. Adios.
Bye.